Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is a special edition Produce Moms podcast. We are teaming up with our brand partners at Naturipe Farms, and I am so excited because we are celebrating in partnership with Naturipe Women's History Month with a 3-part mini-series. For those of you that aren't aware, Women's History Month is defined. You can visit womenshistorymonth.gov and you can learn more about the fact that March is Women's History Month. And the Library of Congress, National Archives and Records Administration, National Endowment for the Humanities, National Gallery of Art, National Park Service, Smithsonian Institute, and United States Holocaust Memorial Museum join together in commemorating and encouraging the study, observance, and celebration of the vital role of women in American history. And it's been amazing to see what has happened with Women's History Month through the years. And I applaud the wonderful people at Naturipe for taking March and Women's History Month as a point of inspiration in what we're getting ready to kick off today. And that is, we're going to celebrate women in agriculture. We're going to celebrate the role that women have at Naturipe Farms. And we're going to celebrate the way that fresh produce and Naturipe have empowered women through the years. So it's going to be an incredible 3-part series. And today we're kicking things off with one repeat guest to the Produce Moms podcast and 2 new people that you haven't heard from yet, but you are going to love getting to know these women. I'm also looking forward to it. So our 3 guests today, we're going to welcome Donna Lynn Browne. Donna Lynn is the Senior Director of Food Safety and Social Responsibility at Naturipe. We're welcoming Aribel Aguirre-Beck. She is from the executive team, serves as the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Administration Officer. And then we are welcoming back to the show, CarrieAnn Arias, Vice President of Marketing for Naturipe. And as you know from her previous appearance, a personal mentor of mine, a true catalyst for my leveling up as a woman who is owning my own way. So this is going to be a great, empowering discussion. And it's wonderful to kick things off Women's History Month with Naturipe Farms, episode 1. Here we go. Donna Lynn, we'll start with you for your self-introduction and hello to all of our listeners.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Donna Lynn Browne. I've been with Naturipe it'll be 10 years in July. I have a degree in microbiology and I've been working in produce food safety for about 29 years now.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. And Aribel?
Yes. Hi, I'm Aribel Aguirre-Beck, and I started when Naturipe Farms started. So I came from one of the owners and helped work together to build Naturipe Farms. So I've been here since the very beginning, over 25 years. So it's been an exciting ride here.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. And CarrieAnn, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. It's great to be back. So I've been with Naturipe for almost 5 years. I've been in the produce industry for over 20. And I'm really excited for today's conversation. Being a woman in the produce industry is definitely something that's had an evolution over the past, my career, 20 years. So this is an exciting day.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. There's been a tremendous evolution. I think any woman in agriculture, any woman in fresh produce that's joining us, and women everywhere, right? Like they're nodding their head in agreement right now. So CarrieAnn, we'll stick with you to kind of get this discussion started. I mentioned in the opening remarks, you've been a mentor to me. You've empowered me. But I want to put you in the hot seat for a minute and learn more about how your job and how Naturipe as a company and an employer has empowered you.
I think it's just having these other two women on the phone today with me, I think is representative of what it's like to be a part of this team. And Naturipe has a lot of women in leadership and also is definitely very focused on making sure that we have a great representation of women in really all of our departments. So we feel very balanced, which I think is exciting. But I think more so, we're all allowed to do our jobs and do the things that are right for the company. And we're very supported by our leadership, our owners. We have a lot of great women that are farmers. One of the things that you'll see on social media for the entire month of March are us honoring our growers and our employees that are females that have been a part of this organization. And it's really representation of what it takes for Naturipe to be successful. And it's all of us. And it really has everything to do with the right people doing the right jobs.
Yeah, that's true. And, Donna Lynn, I'd love to bring you on now because especially you have a pretty scientific job. I mean, the Senior Director of Food Safety and Social Responsibility, and not only scientific, but of critical importance. And I think that most women can identify as we kind of connect the dots, whether it's at the elementary school level, how there's more initiatives to get girls interested in the sciences, all the way up through professional career building and what exists to get women engaged with verticals and jobs such as food safety. I'd love to hear more from you. How has Naturipe and your work empowered you?
Well, I think one of the things for women empowerment is you need to give them the tools to improve themselves, their lives, overall. I mean, that is, when you do that, you really truly empower a woman to do better. When she does better, her life generally gets better. Naturipe, although I'm very scientific, they do things like they sent me and paid for a week executive leadership training to continue to improve what I do and how I do my job. So that's a very important thing. It's also, like you said, the sciences. I'm actually mentoring a couple of young people right now through a big produce association in the role of food safety. So we kind of, they learn through our experience. So we give them the knowledge to empower them to do the right thing. And Naturipe allows me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. So your impact will transcend even outside of your office and the Naturipe brand, which is inspiring. I mean, that type of contribution, it empowers us all, Yeah, it's great. So Aribel, from the executive viewpoint, what is happening at Naturipe where there's so many strong, empowering women that are part of this organization? I mean, what are you guys doing is this a deliberate effort from the executive office and the company structure? Is it a scenario where, these empowering women are a magnetic force to attract other empowering women? I mean, what's happening? Because I feel like everyone I meet at Naturipe, and we're going to have the opportunity to continue to spotlight some of these incredible women, but it's just, it's leadership, and a level of approachability and empowerment that is unique. I mean, we work with a lot of brands at the Produce Moms, and I feel like it's a very unique, positive characteristic of the Naturipe brand.
Well, I think Naturipe learned early on that women are good for business. If you read a lot of articles on successful businesses, it's a balance. You have both male, female, and different cultures. Mm-hmm. And the more diverse management is, executives are, they tend to be more successful. And so we have learned to empower women, give them all the tools, whatever they want. Learn if they want additional training, additional support. We know that women are very good for our business. And like you see CarrieAnn and Donna Lynn, they're amazing. And we have so many more amazing directors and managers in our companies at all levels, that the more that we've hired, the more that we empower, it's just been successful for us. And I think it's successful for any company that tends to do the same. The idea of being in a meeting in any settings and getting different ideas from different point of views just makes you more successful.
Yeah, it does. And Aribel, when you started with Naturipe, I know you said you were part of the business from the beginning. What was your role when your employment began?
I started off with, it was like a VP of finance. So it was pretty high up. Mm-hmm. But through the years, we were a really small company back then, and it's amazing how we've grown. And now, we have a VP and Naturipe of finance, and I moved into the chief financial officer, and then we had some changes within the company, and then I got more responsibility, which is chief administrative officer. And it's been always new and challenging, and giving me more and more opportunity to grow with the company and as an individual and as a professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that journey is, witnessing your journey is empowering in and of itself too, for people. And likewise with the women that are joining you today, and the many women that you are referencing in your remarks. So thank you for sharing that. CarrieAnn, I'd love to get a little bit more details from you on just really defining, what does female empowerment look like to you? How do you define that?
I think for me, it's really about that moment when you can see somebody succeed. You refer to me as your mentor, and I appreciate that. And it's definitely a big passion for me. And I think that as a woman that, has found her way into a leadership position within the organization, I feel a great responsibility to share that with others. And I think that part of empowerment comes from mentoring. I don't necessarily think that a female has to be mentored by another female, although I think that that's great. I think that it's really that investment. And Donna Lynn and Aribel both spoke to that fact that investing in somebody and giving them the tools that they need is certainly that catalyst. But I think that there's something else. And I think that that's part of being a mentor, or part of finding empowerment within yourself, comes from having people around you that let you experience what success looks like. And it's about the tool piece of it, but it's also, you have to fail. You have to fall down. You have to get your knees skinned. You have to be disappointed. You have to do things wrong. And I think that empowerment for anybody, male or female, comes from that moment of standing back up. And when I think about our organization and the way in which we work with our teams, the way in which we think about mentoring, and everybody has a different personal take on it, but we all feel that great sense of responsibility to make sure that we're lifting other people up. And when Aribel talks about success of an organization, I think personally, for me, success looks like the people around you being promoted, not for yourself, but for those other ones, because then you're lifting up the whole ship. And Naturipe is really, really strong in focusing on that moment of empowerment by allowing us to have the opportunity to be mentors. Aribel is a mentor. Donna Lynn's a mentor. I'm a mentor. We all do that. And a lot of us do that on our own time. And we're passionate about that experience. And we're passionate about giving back to the organization and to the industry that's done so much for us as women in the business.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And CarrieAnn, you mentioned you've got about 20 years in the ag fresh produce industry, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm guessing your journey didn't start as a vice president of marketing, right?
No, I was an administrative assistant to owner of a produce company. That was my very first job. I wanted to get into the produce business, and I worked in the art and interior design business and sales and marketing. And I was commuting like 5 hours a day in my job. And I wanted to get into produce. And so I took a giant leap and took a massive pay cut just to get in the door of a produce company and learn the business. And worked my way up from there. And I'll tell you that I couldn't have done it without mentors around me. And I recognize that it took, a lot of support and having people that I could reach out to and look up to and get advice from in order to make it to where I am today. And I'm eternally grateful. And, this is a small industry, so I get to see those people at conferences and trade shows. And I think that is something that maybe is a little bit special in the produce industry, because my 2 previous industries before this one, I never felt that kind of camaraderie that I feel that the produce industry provides.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, fiercely competitive, but also very collaborative and camaraderie, when we all gather, which is why we all love to get together, So, all right. Well, Donna Lynn, I want to hear more from you on how the role of women have changed in the ag industry overall. I mean, you mentioned in your opening remarks, you're another example of someone with a decade plus in this industry. How have you witnessed the role of women changing in agriculture?
Well, when I very first started, I was in a laboratory doing things like determining the D&Z values for Tallomyces flavus, so there wouldn't be mold mats on concentrates that went in big ships across to different continents. And I had a mentor there. He was a man. I saw what he did is he loved food safety, and he ran around the world for this company, putting out fires and helping people out. And I told him, I said, I would love to do that. He says, you need to get out and get some plant experience. So that's what I did. About 6 months later, I quit that job and went and worked at a chocolate factory for a little bit, and got my plant feet in there. And then right after that, went into back into ag, because the first job in the lab was an ag company, but I had to get the plant experience somewhere else. And then when I did get into the ag, originally ag's pretty much a boys club, because most of the growers and farmers and people that were in it were male. And it has changed so much in the 28 years that I've been doing this. I mean, you see so many women now as CEOs, CFOs, CAOs, on boards of different companies. And I think what Aribel said, I think, they realize that having a balance is a good thing. And, when you start working for nothing but men, you show them how good you can do things. So I guess women ain't so bad after all.
Right.
But it really has changed quite a bit, because it really used to be a total old boys club in agriculture 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, when you
it's
were
really not that way anymore.
Right. And Donna Lynn, when you were starting in the food safety, that scientific sector of our industry, and also extremely important, maybe the most important sector of our industry. I mean, I have to imagine that the amount of women when your journey began, there couldn't have been very many, especially compared to where you're at today with how many women are involved. Yeah.
You're correct on that. There wasn't. And, you had to learn to play the game right, so you didn't piss them off and you could still do your job and get it done right. And now it's kind of evolved into the point where, they'll actually come to you and ask you for advice.
Right.
So it really has changed. I mean, we still have a long way to go in different realms. We always do in women empowerment in general, I believe. But it really has come a long way in agriculture, and I'm very happy to see that.
Yes. Tell us more about your role as senior director. Because it's twofold: food safety and social responsibility. Social responsibility, there's a layer of that would include empowering the workforce and most definitely empowering a stakeholder such as a female employee. So Tell us more about what you do in social responsibility.
And social responsibility, it really is, you want to make sure that you're treating your workers, responsibly, right? So you want to make sure that they follow all labor laws, they don't discriminate. It is a big responsibility because I have to make sure that all the growers, we have growers, processing plants, coolers, all this stuff, and you have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And it's a big responsibility, but luckily the company that I work for, they really do put their money where their mouth is when it comes to this stuff and want to see it done. We give the people the proper training, the proper information, and then mentor them if they have questions or need some help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. It's so important. Aribel, I'd love to talk to you more about, where do we go from here? You shared such incredible remarks on, your journey and how far you have witnessed the industry come and Naturipe come over the years. But what does the future hold? What are your personal goals from the executive office for the women that surround you?
Donna Lynn was talking a few seconds ago about where we came from. And I still remember the first time I was led into a board meeting and I was participating and someone turned around and says, "Hey, can you get me some coffee?" Now, again, this was many years ago. So I was a little taken back by that. And, I said, "Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you come with me to the kitchen? I'll show you where the coffee is. So next time you could get it yourself." But one of the things, and the reason why I say that is, that was my experience quite a few years ago. I mean, many, many years ago. My goal is for someone never to have to go through that process, that you could walk into any place, whether it's a board meeting, a meeting, any place, and they look at you as an individual, not thinking that you might not be worth the position or worth being there because you're a female. We've come a long way in this industry. Now, I'm amazed when I walk into different places, how I see so many amazing, confident, empowered females being representative in all areas, C-level, industry, organization, and anywhere you look. And I guess my goal for the future is that I'm not surprised and I'm not happy to see it. It's just the norm. It's just the norm that, that we are respected by our differences and are given empowered in positions and everything by what we can do, not because we're female, not because we're male, just because we're the right individual for that position, occasion, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. Thank you. CarrieAnn, I'd love to hear more from you on as you look ahead. What is your aspiration for women in agriculture and the women who are around you at Naturipe?
I definitely think the aspiration is that we don't take our foot off the gas. I think that we have we're going the right direction. We, as an organization, as an industry, you see the trajectory. There's more and more women in leadership positions, more and more women, not just running the companies, but owning the companies, women that are the actual farmers. And quite frankly, that's been around for a very long time, but I don't think it was very known. And I think part of how we do that successfully as an industry is continue to tell the stories. Like what you're doing here today with this podcast, like the women in leadership positions that are part of boards. I think that the more good PR, right? It's telling the story to make sure that it's known so that the generations that are coming into this industry recognize that they have a path because the women before us have blazed that trail. And I think about some of the amazing women that have won our past awards, for women in leadership. And I feel like I maybe didn't know those people because they were before my time in this industry, but the ones that I have met that have been honored in such a way, when you have those conversations, they started out the same way that I did. It's not as though we've not had this path within agriculture. But I think what's exciting is that there's more and more women coming into the business. And so there is greater opportunity for them to experience the things that we've been fortunate enough to experience. Some of the stories that Donna Lynn tells, 20 years ago, it was not, we were all living that. I think that, I was asked to get coffee because it was my job when I first started in this business. Right. So there's that too, and I think
time out. Could anyone imagine what would happen if someone asked CarrieAnn to fetch coffee for them today, especially if it was a man?
Okay, admit it. I would actually do it depending on who it was. I've delivered a lot of sodas in my day. You know what? I think though, it's important to remember one thing. Never ask your employee to do something you wouldn't do yourself. I learned that really, really early on. My very first manager at a job taught me that. And I was a lifeguard, for crying out loud, but we had to do all the horrible jobs like clean the bathrooms. And I thought it was the worst thing in the world until she was like, listen, I got to do it too. And she said, as long as you remember, whenever you have a job, if somebody ever reports to you, never tell them that their job's beneath you. And I think that that's something that really rings true. And if you can stand side by side with your staff and do those things, whether it's get coffee or anything else, it shows that all those jobs are important. And that's one of the things that I think has happened in the produce industry, is the recognition that it takes all these jobs to make something happen, and that there isn't something that's just like more important than something else. And I think that we have done a very good job of that, whether it's through things like this that highlight what's happened and women that are successful, or even as simple as when we go to a conference and we see, the title of owner or CEO, or in Aribel's case, CFO. It's like, okay, they're at the top of the food chain and they're women. That it proves that it's attainable. And there's more and more of us. And I think that is something that when I say we don't take our foot off the gas, it's because we're going in the right direction. We're setting the examples. And I think that it's our responsibility as leaders to continue to set those examples. And I can honestly say the two women that are on this podcast with me and you, Lori, are all setting those examples. And I think that's how we have this future trajectory as we are today.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for the kind remarks. And I agree with you. This has been an empowering conversation in and of itself. And, before we get to our closing remarks, Donna Lynn, I'd love to ask you, what do you want? You're a senior director of food safety and social responsibility for one of the largest brands, one of the largest operations in fresh produce. What do you want someone who's just a female who's just getting started in the fresh produce industry? What do you want her to know?
I want her to know to believe in herself, to be true to herself and what she thinks. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah,
that's great advice. Great advice. And it is so important.
That'll probably be my the top thing. So Naturipe really is good. Aribel has a team of direct reports, all of the directors, which I am included. And I think at least half, if not more than half, are women. And they are all incredible. And Aribel gives us plenty of rope to hang ourselves with, which is a great thing, I think. Occasionally we might hang, but not very often, thank God. But it empowers us to do our job and to do it right.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And you're right. And before we pass the mic over to Aribel for her closing thoughts, is there anything else that you would like, the listeners with us today to know, Donna Lynn?
I just actually would like to thank Aribel because she believes in us and she gives us. Aribel has been a true inspiration to me because she's on the board of directors and still on Naturipe Farms. The majority of the owners are male, and she is incredible to lead us through all of this. So I just want to thank you, Aribel. She's one of my inspirations.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And Aribel, please, the mic is yours. Your response, your closing remarks. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Donna Lynn, but you are amazing. So I guess my closing remark is, if I would have to tell somebody, a female starting in the produce industry, is the limits is on you. You could just do whatever your heart desires, and don't let anybody limit you. If you're being limited somewhere, go someplace else, because no one should limit any women in this industry or anywhere. So just be confident in who you are and where you want to go. And if you are confident and you're willing to work and do what it takes, you'll get there. And Donna Lynn mentioned about my team. I have a whole bunch of a wonderful team, both male and female, and and I empower all of them to do what they need to do. And, the more you surround yourself by great people, the more successful you will be. And one of the things that was mentioned before, mentoring is something that you should always look for a mentor and ask people to mentor you, because besides that, you'll get a lot of knowledge from them. They'll learn from you. One of the best thing about mentoring is what I learned from the people who I'm mentoring. It's always exciting. And as a closing comment, Lori, this is amazing what you're doing. March being Women's Month, I think is important to get the word out there that, be confident. You have to feel empowered before anybody gets you powered. You have to realize that you can do it, and then find a company or person that supports you in your goals and dreams and your aspiration. So thank you for doing this for Naturipe, for the women in produce. And finally, I'm so glad I finally got to meet you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, it's been a pleasure. I am, the honor is mine, and this has been an amazing episode, and we're going to have the one and only CarrieAnn Arias actually sign us off from today's show with her closing remarks and the last goodbye to our audience. But before I pass the mic to CarrieAnn, I want to echo what Donna Lynn and Aribel have said in their closing remarks. I want to share a quick personal story. I had, I think most people who are following along with TPM know this. In 2015, I had to take a pretty scary entrepreneurial leap to do what I'm doing today. I had to actually buy my work for hire and buy back my idea. And that was my pathway to entrepreneurship and being the owner of the Produce Moms. And I remember going to my very first trade event after I had purchased TPM, and I had significant amount of debt, 6 figures of acquisition debt. I had one very small client, and it was embarrassing, frankly. Like, I was very nervous. I couldn't afford to stay at the hotel. I really couldn't. I could barely afford the gas to drive to Chicago for the event. And I asked a question during a women's panel. And I said, what do you do when you feel like no one believes in you? And it was, that was a moment of bravery. I guess it was also maybe like a call for help, because literally most of the leaders within our industry, most of the women leaders within our industry that could be present there, they were, in that little breakout session. And one of them, Maida, after the session, she stopped me and she said, if you feel like you're surrounded by people that don't believe in you, she goes, that is because you are standing in the wrong room. And that advice, that mentorship in that moment, it has stuck with me even still today, every step of the way. As we make decisions at the Produce Moms, I'm like, you know what? If people don't believe in what we're doing, I am not in the right room. I'm not surrounding myself with the right people. I'm not working with the right brands. And we have crafted out these amazing partnerships and pathways for the Produce Moms. And it's just embracing that advice has taken us to the highest of levels. And I'm thankful for that moment and that micro point of mentorship that I was blessed to receive. So I wanted to share that before we close this out, and certainly wanted to thank our guests one more time and thank the wonderful team at Naturipe, not only for their support and partnership with the Produce Moms, but their commitment to female empowerment, their commitment to making a really big deal out of Women's History Month and being part of this little mini series that we've got going on here. It's going to be wonderful. So looking forward to the episodes that come. But before we talk too much about what's ahead, CarrieAnn, I need you to close us out. Give us some strong closing remarks and any final advice that you'd like to, or comments that you'd like to share with our listeners.
First of all, thank you, Lori and Aribel and Donna Lynn, for today. I think that telling this story is the step that will always be in the right direction. I think telling the story is the most important thing that any of us can do, not just females, but anybody in this industry. The produce industry story is a really powerful, impactful one that often is lost in the sea of other things. And so I'm passionate about what you do, Lori, and telling a story. And you've had other people from Naturipe on this call, including Ellen Thompson, who is an amazing woman that talked about what plant breeding was all about. And I've listened to that podcast several times. I've gone back because I just thought it was such a unique way to help consumers understand the importance of what this industry is all about. And as far as our topic for today, I think that it's scary to come into a business that feels very male dominated. And I think once you enter it, you realize that it's not the case anymore. I think that there's a lot more balance than there ever has been. But I found for me, one of the things that helped me, not just my own personal tenacity, but volunteering. Volunteering was a way for me to find my voice in this business. It was a way for me to meet people outside of my own company. And I think that there's something to be said for the philanthropic component of the produce industry that's unlike anything I've ever seen. And when you start volunteering, it opens the door for you to become a mentor and a mentee. I think it helps you realize that the support system in this industry goes well beyond that room that you're in. And maybe you do realize it's the wrong room. But I think that with what we have before us and the way in which we really feed the world through this very small group of people across the globe, there's such a huge responsibility for us to make sure that the people that are a part of this industry feel the support of each other. It's something that is so unique and special. And I think that the more women that come to the table, the more women that can stand up and take what they have learned and share it with others. And you don't have to be a mentor in your 40s. You have a story to tell and you can share that and help somebody that's the same age as you. Or to Aribel's point, you learn from the people that you are their mentor. And I think that remembering that, and as you build the plan for what you want to be when you grow up, and maybe it's just grow up 1 year, but what you want to be when you grow up, the resources are there. And you just have to take that very first step and not be afraid.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.